So the Bible says, in the last days there shall be doctrines of devil, 1 Timothy chapter 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 2 says that we are not to be ignorant of Satan's devices. So it's important to note that in the last days, we are to be aware of what Satan's going to do. We are to take note. Now, here's something that's going to be interesting that you should take note what Satan's going to do. People don't know about this, but you got to realize this, is that Genesis chapter 6 verse 4, if this is the first time you're hearing this one, sons of God, fallen angels, you got to realize this, is that they intermingled with humans back at Genesis. But what's going to be interesting is that they can be walking among us today, actually. Really, Pastor? You're saying that the offspring of the sons of God are among us today? Yes, it's very possible. Look at Genesis chapter 6, and we will read verse 4. Let's start off from there. Let's start off the history. So let's start off from the beginning where it all starts. Genesis chapter 6 verse 4, notice that the sons of God intermingled with the humans. The Bible says, there were giants in the earth in those days. Okay, so notice these abnormal beings that come out. How? And also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, the same became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. So notice right here, and also after that, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. So meaning, after the sons of God came into the daughters of men, what happened? What happened is they bear children to them. So when the sons of God bore children, it's what? The same, referring to those giants, verse 4, became mighty men which were of old, men of renown. So these sons of God, you'll notice that when they intermingled with the humans, they produced all kinds of offsprings. And one of the offsprings is what? Giants. Now, with giants, you just trace back what's going on. What did God do? He drowned them all out, right? So he drowned them all out with Noah's flood. Is that the end of them? Look at Numbers chapter 13. Numbers chapter 13. We're going to look at verse 33, Numbers chapter 13. And we're going to read verse 33. So these guys should have been gone by the flood. But what happened was this, is that after the flood, they continued. You see giants again. Look at Numbers chapter 13. We will read verse 33. What did the Bible say? And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak. Now look at these giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. See, these giants are not like what some people would try to deny. Oh, there's no such thing as the Nephilim or giants during those days. That's just crazy stuff. And no, look at that. That verse says these giants were what? These were far bigger than humans. Humans look like what? Grasshoppers. Bugs. So you got to realize, okay, this ain't normal right here. Okay, this ain't normal. And how you would know that is the law of first mention in the Bible, where it told you it wasn't normal anyways. When the sons of God intermingled with the human, it wasn't a normal thing. So these giants, it's not something normal. So let's keep reading. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 2. Deuteronomy chapter 2. You might say, well, what happened, Pastor? How did these giants continue their offspring? So, the Bible never mentioned how, but we can guess two possible theories. So one, sons of God started again. So the sons of God intermingled again. And that's very, very believable. You might say, why is that believable, Pastor? Because the reason why is that I'm not going to teach it at this video, but if you look at Daniel chapter 2 And Revelation chapter 12, those sons of God come down and reside and live with the humans again, and they even intermingle with them again. So if the sons of God did that back at Genesis and all the way at the tribulation, why not in between? The second thing is this, is that one of Noah's offsprings contains the gene or carries it from the sons of God. But I'm not sure if that's true. One of Noah's offspring was contaminated by the Son of God. What's interesting is that if you look at these giants, their generations, they particularly come from the generation of Ham. So something happened over there in Ham's seed. So that's pretty interesting. So one of Noah's offspring somehow connected with the sons of God somewhere. So that could be also possible. But let's keep reading. We'll look at Deuteronomy chapter 2 and verse 19. And when thou comest nigh over against the children of Ammon, so remember the children of Ammon, Ammon is connected to the giants at, I think, Numbers chapter 13, but let's keep reading. Distress them not, nor meddle with them, for I will not give thee of the land of the children of Ammon any possession, because I have given it unto the children of Lot for a possession. Okay, so notice right here that God says when you come against the children of Ammon, don't distress them. Look at Deuteronomy chapter 3. Deuteronomy chapter 3. We're going to look at verse 13. Deuteronomy chapter 3. And we will read verse 13. Now, this is going to be pretty interesting, is that where did these giants come from, right? If you want to know where you're going to find these giants, where they're going to be located, it's located according to Numbers chapter 13 and Deuteronomy chapter 2. We're going to look at 3 later on. But it's going to be located where? At the children of Ammon, where Ammon used to be located. If you want to find remains, or if you want to see if any of them are left behind, go to this area right here. That's where you can find them perhaps. Let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 3. We will read verse 13. The Bible says right here, and the rest of Gilead and all Bashan, being the kingdom of Og, gave I unto the half tribe of Manasseh, all the region of Argob with all Bashan, which was called what? The land of giants. So notice right here that Deuteronomy chapter 3 and verse 13, the land of giants was also located at, was it Bashan? Yes, it was located at the region of Argob and Bashan. Now, here's something interesting to note. Why would you say that there are sons of God walking among us today? Because what the children of Israel did is that when they attacked these lands, these guys don't live here anymore. They had to be kicked out of the land by the Jews. So they were scattered. So they're traveling somewhere. They're somewhere out there. But let's keep reading. We're going to look at also 2 Samuel 21. 2 Samuel 21. You're right, they got scattered. Now look, thousands of years later. So think about this, church, is that between Genesis 6 all the way to 2 Samuel, and even between 2 Samuel to the time of Moses and Joshua, you know what the gap is? The gap is centuries to thousands of years. So if the gap is that long between centuries to thousands of years, and the giants still existed, why not even today, after thousands and centuries have passed? But look at 2 Samuel chapter 21. The Bible continues. 2 Samuel 21, we will look at verse 20. The Bible says, and there was yet a battle in Gath. So it's a different location, where was a man of great stature that had on every hand, look at this, 6 fingers and every foot, 6 toes, 24 in number. And he also was born to who? The giant. So notice that even after a long span of time, these giants continue to exist, showing that giants living among humans, despite of the centuries that have passed. But look at Hebrews now. Hebrews chapter 13. Hebrews chapter 13. Now we come to the New Testament. Hebrews chapter 13. You know what the Bible says? The Bible says sons of God, it's possible they can still be here during the church age. Ain't that something? These guys continued. They were there in all the dispensations. Look at Hebrews chapter 13. You'll read verse 2. What did the Bible say about angels, sons of God? Hebrews 13 verse 2. Be not forgetful to entertain strangers. So Hebrews is saying, don't forget to entertain strangers. Why? Because those strangers could be who? For thereby some have entertained what? Angels unawares. Look at that. If Paul is the author of Hebrews, he's telling these Christians, be good, be hospitable to the strangers. Why? That's why Christians, we got to learn, that's why Christians are known to show love toward people. We're supposed to show kindness, love to strangers. Why? Be careful, because you don't know if one of those strangers could be one of the angels. Didn't that happen? Yes, it did. Abraham, he had to take care of strangers. And because of that, the angels, they granted his request. Thank God Lot took care of strangers. Otherwise, he would have lost his head, right? Lot took care of strangers, and they turned out to be the angels who saved his life. And Hebrews in the church age, God says, take care of the strangers. Why? Because of the same reason that those people had who took care of strangers, they turned out to be angels. Think about this. If it is very possible that good angels can be down here in this world today, why not even the bad angels? I mean, so far in all the time periods, after centuries, they were there. And guess what? They're going to be there at the future, according to Revelation chapter 12 and Daniel chapter 2. But look at Acts 15. Acts 15. Here's something to think about. Why is it that these devils, they want to intermingle? When they come into the world, they have a thing about intermingling. They have a thing going on with intermingling. You got to realize this, that one of the signs of Satan, one of the signs of the devil, is this perverseness of intermingling. Now, intermingling should be something that's ordained of God, and that should be good, but it can be twisted and turned into something wicked. And then the devils, they have some sort of infatuation with this stuff. We're going to look at this. Look at Acts chapter 15, verse 20. The Bible says, but that we write unto them that they abstain. Now, this is interesting right here. God's command to the church. Why is God commanding this to the church here? Think about this. There is some sin that God ordained for the church to be aware of. There is some sin that God told them to avoid. It's this particular sin. Acts chapter 15, verse 20. But that we write unto them, the church, that they abstain from pollutions of who? Idols, and from fornication, and from things strangled, and from blood. Look at that. They connected fornication with what? There's fornication and idolatry with that. You got to realize, what are these idols based off of? Why did they create those idols? What were they based off of? These beings right here. I mean, you see them all over India especially, right? A bunch of devils, demonic spirits. They put this together in the same line right here. Interesting. And God told the Christian church to avoid this because there's something strange that connects these two. Let's keep finding out right here. Let's look at Revelation 2, verse 20. Revelation chapter 2 and verse 20. Why is there fornication connected with this idolatry? Why is there this perverseness going on? Because devils, fallen angels, sons of God, they have this sort of infatuation with this intermingling thing. We're going to look at Revelation chapter 2 and verse 20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants, to what? What is this particular paganism doing? To commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed to idols. Again, you see those two particular things in the same line again in Revelation chapter 2 and verse 20. Now look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. We're going to look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10. They have all eat things offered to idols. Acts 15 warned you to stay away from fornication, eat things offered to idols. Strange, strange. To the church, to the Christian church. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10. You know why? Because when we pass centuries and millennia, that's what Satan's using. Look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10. We're going to look at verse 20. The Bible says right here, but I say that the things which the Gentiles sacrifice, so remember, the things that they sacrifice to devils and not to God. And I would not that ye would have fellowship with devils. So they connect this idolatry with devils. Ye cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. Ye cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and of the table of devils. This fornication and idolatry, you got to understand, is connected with devils. They say when you eat things offered to idols, it is what? That table of devils. There's this connection right here, this strange infatuation right here with devils, that they want fornication and idolatry. Why is that? Because throughout history, when these devils were worshipped and these fallen angels were worshipped, they made graven images to those beings. And those beings, what did they do throughout that time? They had an intermingling. They intermingled. And you got to realize that that kind of intermingling is demonic. It's a sign of Satan. Why is that? I'll tell you why. It's very simple. Because one, Satan has to be worshipped in the tribulation. That's one. That's obvious. So that's why there's idolatry. But two, we live in such a sex-perverted society where you got teenagers now that think it's normal to have premarital sex. That's just normal now. That's just normal. If you've got that mentality, you see how messed up the world became? That's what Satan did. We live in a day and age where teenagers, they just want to sleep with vampires. Where we have men fantasizing about demonic women to sleep with. These kind of weird fantasy about sleeping with what? Mermaids, vampires, and creatures. It's repeating what? It's repeating Genesis 6, but you have to make it look innocent. You have to make it seductive. You have to make it alluring. And guess what? Revelation 12 and Daniel 2, they do come down and live among the humans. And don't tell me a lot of people will what? Want to fornicate with those kind of beings. Who does not want to fornicate with Superman, huh? Look at this. This is very demonic right here. And we live in a day and age where homosexuality is condoned, you've got to understand. So, how many homosexuals, same sexes with the sons of God would what? They would want to have sexual perversion with them. We live in a day and age where bestiality and pedophiles, they're coming out more bravely now. How many of them, when these sons of God come down, that this fornication, this perversion, will be much more rampant now? Guess what? I'm not going to teach it in this study, but I taught you a long time ago, these sons of God intermingled with animals. That's why you got some weird mutants coming out. This is strange, messed up stuff going on right here. Strange, messed up stuff. But you'll notice right here that God is warning who? Today. Why would God give this kind of warning today? Because of the tribulation, what's going to happen. Because of what's happening in the last days. And people who don't know this today in the church age, guess what? You're going to be more open when these guys come down. That's why God gave the specific warning to the church. It's interesting in Acts 15 when they said we're not going to lay any other commandment to the church except what? They mentioned two other things, which I could teach about, but I'm not going to teach them. But they mentioned idolatry and fornication. And they realized that the devils had some partaking to do with that. And guess what? These sons of God, they're walking among us somewhere. They're out there. Strange.